Thank you for joining our webinar today. We've got an exciting session for you, pulling together 3 experts from the Projility team with different backgrounds who will each be sharing their top tips and tricks with Microsoft Project and PPM. Let's get started. My name is Annie Levand, and I'm with a Microsoft Gold partner called Projility. We've been implementing Microsoft Project and Portfolio Management solutions for over 18 years for large enterprises, including everything from engineering, construction, IT, and new product development. PMOs and CIOs typically come to us when they can't easily explain what's going on across all their projects. They don't know what resources are working on what work. And they have a hard time getting consistent reports, metrics, and dashboards to make project-based decisions. We offer services and solutions in 3 core areas: deployment and consulting services, Projility's core business. We provide professional services for successfully planning and implementing Microsoft Project Portfolio Management, including Microsoft Project Online, integrating PPM with a line of business applications, and delivering strategic portfolio management solutions to support top-level management planning. We also have a growing Power Platform practice, where we are actively working with clients to build applications, workflows, and reports to automate their most important business processes. Projility also offers a set of pre-built software solutions and accelerators based upon 17 years of experience, including a set of Hammerhead products that provide improved access to your cloud PPM data, accelerate access to visual reports and dashboards using Power BI, connect data between your PPM system with Microsoft Teams, and extend connectivity into Active Directory to improve visibility, insight, and control over your work, people, and projects. Finally, Projility provides post-implementation support services, including expert care, designed to assist your PMO with gaining on-demand expertise on the solution supported. We have a full online automated e-learning offering that can improve consistency and adoption for your users of Microsoft project management tools. We have upcoming webinars covering sessions on best practices for PPM. All virtual webinars will start at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can register for these events through the Eventbrite link provided or by searching Eventbrite Projility in your browser. Hope you can join us for these upcoming sessions. All videos from this and previous series are available on our best practice playlist on YouTube listed on this page. Topics range from managing your digital transformation program using PPM technologies to integrating PPM with agile line of business applications. Feel free to subscribe and access this library at any time to share with your colleagues. If you have any questions as you watch each speaker's presentation, please log them in the questions and answer manager at the top of your team screen. We'll review those towards the end of our session. First, we'll introduce each Projility speaker, provide a bit of background, and then hand it off to them for their presentations. Our first speaker is Amanda Kuhlman, consultant at Projility. Amanda has worked to deliver project management solutions for over 10 years across different industries, including construction, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, new product development, aerospace, government, and banking. She's a Microsoft certified professional that has expertise in many of the Microsoft technologies critical to PMO's planning, managing, and delivering on projects, programs, and portfolios. She uses Microsoft Project every day, lives in Houston with her husband, 2 kids, Kit Kat, and her chocolate lab. Amanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Annie. The topic I have chosen for today is within Microsoft Project Desktop, and because project scheduling can be challenging for new users. It is very powerful, and since it is so powerful, it does require several inputs from the user to get your schedule set up correctly. Several questions that I get asked frequently are in regards to the task and the scheduling of them. Why do my tasks update every time I assign or remove a resource? Why does the work increase when I add a resource? And why does the duration increase when I remove a resource? You can see I added 2 question marks to the end of each of these because they are typically points of frustration for new users within Microsoft Project. I have laid out a typical planning process that I recommend for new users. We are going to be focusing on the last piece, the assignment planning. But with that to be completed, the rest of these planning steps do have needed to be completed first. The first one of that is defining your project, your start date, some of those project level attributes, creating that work breakdown structure, your task list arranged in manageable work products or sections, estimates provided for work and or duration for those tasks, creating the dependencies or the links between all of your tasks in a logical manner, defining your resources or building out that project team. And then finally, we get to the assignment planning piece, which is where we're going to focus for the webinar for my section today. The assignment planning is the process of assigning resources to tasks. This is most effective when all the previous steps in your planning process have already been completed. Assignments are determined per resource per task. For example, if you have a task that is 15 days in duration with 10 different resources assigned to it, this generates 10 different assignments that can be managed individually if you would like them to. When scheduling your tasks, it is very important to understand how tasks are scheduled. And tasks are scheduled according to this formula: work equals duration times units. Work represents the hours or the effort that it will take your resources to complete the task, the amount of time it takes them sitting, focusing on that activity in order for it to be complete. Duration is the calendar time, the working days that it's going to take to complete that task. And finally, your units, the percent allocation that each resource can dedicate to that task. A change in one of these variables will affect the others. But what you have the ability to do using task types is to lock down which part of the equation that you would like to remain fixed or constant within your project. There are 3 different task types. The first one is fixed work. A task with fixed work will keep that work value fixed regardless of what changes to the duration or units within the task. A fixed work task can be used a lot of times when you have contractors. You have estimated work that you need to stay within, and that you need to make sure that that 40 hours you estimated for the task stays the same, whether that 40 hours is accomplished over 1 week of time or 2 weeks of time. The next task type is fixed duration. This keeps the duration of your task fixed regardless of if any changes to work or units are updated. In a fixed duration task, if I estimate that my task will take 5 days to complete, project doesn't care if there's 1 person working on it or 10 people or 100 people, that task is going to get done in 5 days. And lastly is the fixed units. Tasks with fixed units will use the assigned units or that percent resource allocation to remain fixed regardless of the changes to the worker duration. I will say in most deployments that I have worked in, the fixed units is the least common task type used, but for some reason it is also the default within Microsoft Project. So I always recommend changing your project options to either fixed work or fixed duration to be your default when you create new projects or add new tasks. Task types are very important to understand in primarily 2 areas of your project. The first one is the planning, what we've been talking about so far. How do you receive estimates from your project team when you are building out that project schedule? Usually I see this done in 2 ways. The project managers tell me that they ask some resources, how long is this going to take you to get done? And I usually see 2 answers. One is, give me about 8 hours. It'll take me about 8 hours to get that task done. Or give me about a week and I'll get that done. So generally, how you receive estimates from your team will be how you want to start the task types for your project. While this is a task by task attribute that you can update for each task individually, I recommend starting with 1 task type for your entire schedule or when you are first planning out that project, and then you can make modifications as you need to. Do you have contractors on your project? And it's important to keep those work estimates consistent. If so, then I would recommend a fixed work type to start. Are there defined project deliverables based on due dates or deadlines that need to remain constant? A lot of times there's phases of the project that need to land at certain times. And if this is the case, I would recommend a fixed duration. The second time task type comes in handy is when you are adjusting tasks once the project has begun. I'll walk through a demo in just a moment that will show you the planning process. When you have estimated work and or duration and you assign a resource, what does that do to the rest of your task elements? The work and duration. And secondly, when you are adjusting the tasks, once your project has done, what does that do to your schedule? For example, if your project is behind schedule and you need to crash your project by adding additional resources to the task to help that project get accomplished more quickly, depending on the task type, you'll have different results. If your tasks are fixed work rather, and you add resources to the task, your work value will remain the same and your duration will decrease. When you're crashing your project, that's generally what you want to do because you're all hands on deck trying to get the outputs done more quickly. If those tasks are fixed duration, that duration will remain the same, but that work value will increase. So you're asking more time of your resources without really decreasing that duration. I have a sample project built out. And in this project, I have completed all of those steps of the planning the planning process already, with the exception of the assignments. I have built out the work breakdown structure. I have performed some estimates for either work or duration. You'll see throughout my schedule that I have kind of a combination. I have also linked my tasks together. I have inserted the column for type. This is the column that will be where you can update or set the task type, depending on how you want to manage that project. For this first section of tasks, I have set this with a fixed duration task type. The only estimates I have provided here are duration. For this section of my project, I only received a duration estimate. The next phase of work, I have set this to be fixed work, and I have only estimated the work values. For the last section, I have a combination of fixed duration and fixed work. But for all of the tasks in this section, I have estimated both my work and the duration. These are my more precise estimates that I received from the project team. Starting with this first section where I have fixed work, if I come to the resource name column, I'm going to assign one resource to this task. All the resources on my project team have a standard calendar, which is an 8-hour workday for 5 days a week. I'm going to assign one resource to this task. And what you'll see is it keeps that duration the same, but it does make some assumptions about the amount of work that it will take to complete the task. For my second task, I will assign 3 resources. Assigning 3 resources still keeps that duration the same, but now it assumes that I have 3 resources working 100% of their allocation for the entirety of that 2 days. And in doing so, creates a total work of this task of 48 hours. For my third task here, I'm going to assign just 2 resources to it, which of course, project will add the work, assuming 2 people, full-time for 5 days, will equate in about 80 hours of work. If I need to come back and make a modification to these assignments, such as add resources or remove resources, with this task being fixed duration, I expect that the duration of this task to remain the same and the work value will go up or down. I'm going to assign 2 more resources to this task. And what you'll see is that your duration value does stay consistent. It is that work value that will change. For my second set of tasks that are fixed work, I will perform that same exercise. So for this task, I have estimated that it will take about 10 hours to complete. So when I assign one resource to the task, project assumes that for this one resource, working at 100% of their allocation, it will take them about 1.25 days to complete that task. If I increase the amount of resources on that task, the 10 hours will stay the same, but now we're working more efficiently. I have more hands working on that task. So now we'll get done in about less than half a day. And you can see that based on the fact that I do have dependencies with my other tasks, that the changes I make to that duration are ripple affecting throughout the rest of my schedule. For this task, a 4-hour task over one day, I will assign one resource to it. Project will not estimate, which is that question mark in your duration, any less than 1 day when you first have all the elements of your task. So it then will assign your units here to be 50%. For this fixed work, I'm going to assign 2 resources to this task. So 16 hours between those 2 resources can be accomplished in 1 day, 8 hours for each of them. And the last task here that I will update is this 40-hour task for 1 day. I will assign one resource to it, and project will assume that that will take about 5 days to complete. As I move down into this section, I have some tasks fixed duration and some fixed work, but I have estimated both work and duration for these tasks. Now that I have given project more information, it's going to have less assumptions that it can make. So now that I've given it both work and duration, when I assign a resource, the only element that it can now change or make a guess about is the percent allocation. So it says that this resource needs to work 150% to get this 120 hours completed within the 10-day time frame. For my next task, if I assign 2 different people here, you will see that it splits the work evenly between both of them, asking 38% of time between the both of them. And you might ask how project is splitting this time out. How is it taking this 15 hours and dividing it between 2 people? There is a split view that can be seen in the details pane that toggles this bottom split panel on or off. And this allows you to look at your Gantt chart up top and your split screen down below to see that for each resource, it's given each one about 7.5 hours of work. For this first fixed work task, I have 20 hours over 10 days. I'm going to go ahead and assign one resource to it. And it assumes that it's going to take George about 25% of his time to get this work done. Another important note to make about project and task types is it will only assume this percent allocation the first time if you've estimated work and duration. Any additional resources added to the task afterwards will assume that those resources are 100%. So you can see both Amanda and Brent are 100%. And in doing that, the duration decreased. That fixed work 20 hours that I wanted to keep remained the same, and the duration decreased. So it does go through all of the scenarios that I wanted to walk through into how to use that task type. So Annie, I will turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Amanda. Next up is Brice Center, Senior Consultant at Projility. He's been a professional project manager for over 20 years and has been working with Microsoft Project Management and PPM solutions since 1994. As a Microsoft certified professional, he has a deep background in project, SharePoint, and Power Platform technologies required for both traditional and modern PPM. Brice is based outside of Boston. Brice, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm just switching over. All right, I'm here today to talk to you about calendar layering and task calendars. And some typical questions that I get asked, among others, are how do I get my task to occur on a weekend? Or why is my task skipping days when I assign a certain resource? There are other questions that also get answered, like sometimes you have a piece of equipment that runs on a 24/7 schedule and you want to use that as well. So all of that can be handled by using task calendars, but the way that Microsoft handles the layering of calendars can sometimes confuse people, so I'm here to try to clear that up. So as we all know, just some basic background information, calendars do govern the task dates, the dates in which our tasks get scheduled, the fact that they skip over weekend days because they're non-working days. It tells the task when it can have work done. The calendars get applied at the project level, the resource level, and the task level. You'll see here this diagram here, we're going to get to it in further detail toward the end of this section. But you'll see here we have the project calendar listed, task calendars with a certain checkbox turned off, resource calendars and task calendars with that same checkbox turned on. They will override each other according to this layering scheme. But the task calendars can actually help us control individual tasks separate from the project level calendar and also separate from the resource level calendar. And learning how to control this, learning how they stack, can help us accomplish nearly any scheduling objective we have. So first, some background information, just in case you need it. Calendars in general define several aspects of the scheduling. One is what days are working days and what days are non-working days. For instance, non-working days would be weekends. That's shown over here with the Saturdays and the Sundays being grayed out. It also defines the working times. So typically you'd have an 8-hour workday, and this happens, the default happens to be 8 a.m. to noon, skipping for lunch hour, and then going 1 to 5. Those can be adjusted if you have special scenarios on custom calendars. And then also they define the exceptions. So the exceptions are typically holidays or PTO or vacation. Basically, the exceptions turn normal working days into non-working days, and you'll see that reflected here in this diagram here as the teal days. This happens to be the Thanksgiving holiday and the day after Thanksgiving. And tasks will honor those exception days as they honor the non-working days. So if you had a 5-day task that would normally have started on the 20th and ended on the 24th, because you have these exception days there, it'll do the first 3 days of the 5-day task, then skip 2 days and the weekend, and then have the last 2 days of work being done on the 27th and 28th. There are several calendar types, particularly in Project Online. Just so you know, these all would be enterprise calendars and only the admins are able to edit them. But there's the standard calendar, which is it's a base calendar. The standard calendar is the one that comes out of the box with Microsoft Project and Project Online. It's a 40-hour, 5-day per week calendar, skipping weekends. Holidays, there are no holidays out of the box, but they can be added. Then additionally, you have custom calendars. They're also service-based calendars. Often you create a custom calendar in order to account for regional holiday differences. So for instance, the US has its set of holidays and we celebrate Thanksgiving. India, for instance, does not. They would have a different set of holidays, and you'd want to account for your resources working correctly so your dates are accurate when you go to schedule your whole project out. Another reason you might want a custom calendar is for different working days or times. So you might want to have the ability to force a task to work over the weekends, or a piece of equipment that runs 24/7, and you want to be able to adjust that in your schedule separately from your project calendar that usually would skip weekends and work only 8-hour days. And then we have resource calendars, which actually take one of the base calendars, whether it be a standard calendar or a custom calendar, and applies it to a resource. And then on top of that, you get to put personal exception days, things like your own vacation or resources vacation or PTO. And just a little screenshot here of showing some examples, like night shift would be working different hours. Working weekends obviously would be working on Saturdays and Sundays as well. India would have the India holidays, India specific holidays. We have a no holidays calendar, a 24-hour calendar, and then we have individual resource calendars. So the individual resource calendars will show up in your project when you add resources to your project team. I'll show you this actually in a system momentarily. So you're going to want to know how to view your calendar configuration. Again, I'll start with a note here. If you're in Project Online, this is going to be a view-only situation. You can't change the calendar configurations here. It must be done by an admin, but you definitely can get pertinent information for finding out why your schedule is behaving a certain way. For instance, you may have a situation where when you apply a certain resource, all of a sudden it's skipping days and you don't know why. It's a mystery. So the first step to do is to go in here and find out what they might have for exceptions. So you'll see here, I'll show you this in a system, but just to reiterate the slide here, we have the project ribbon, and on the project ribbon you have the change working time button, which brings up this dialog box. This dialog box has several components to it. You select which calendar you want to view here, and then that changes all of the content in the lower portion. When you select a day in the mini calendar, you see the working times for that day. And then here in teal and also reflected in text down below are the different exceptions that are on this standard calendar or whatever calendar you happen to be viewing. So let me go ahead and switch over and show you this in an actual schedule. So here we have a schedule that's going to be my example to show you the demo toward the end. But what I'll do to view the calendar configuration is to go to the project ribbon, then go to change working time. And then I get this dialog box that I just showed. Here's the calendar selector. I'm going to go ahead and stay on the standard at the moment. Here we have the working times for this day that happens to be selected, which is June 8th, today. I can select another day and it'll tell me this working times. They're usually consistent day to day within the same calendar. Saturday will show up as a non-working day. And then down lower here, we have the exceptions. And you'll notice if I click on one of them, it'll actually jump me to the right month in this calendar. I'll click off of it so you can see that that actually is colored teal because that's the observed Independence Day of July 3rd. Similarly, if I click on Thanksgiving, it's going to jump me to November. I'll click off of it again. And you'll see that the exception days are there. So that means that these are going to be holidays. They are non-working days because they're calendar exceptions. Other things to note here are that we have all the different various calendars that are here. We've got, for instance, the no holidays calendar. You'll notice that the Thanksgiving holiday went away. We have the 24-hour calendar, which has a working time of 12 a.m. to 12 a.m., 24 hours. We have a working weekends calendar, which got rid of the Saturday and Sunday non-working days. So it's a 7-day week. And then we have the various resource calendars. So if we look at Joe, for instance, now you'll notice we get a new item, a new box rather, right here for base calendar. And as I mentioned previously, the resource calendar is the combination of a base calendar plus additional exceptions. So Joe happens to be using the standard calendar to establish his non-working time and working time, which you'll see here that the Thanksgiving holiday, although not explicitly listed down below, it's assumed because it's part of the standard calendar. So he is not working on those days. Now, Joe does not have any additional exceptions. However, Zach does. So if I go to Zach, you'll notice that he has some PTO scheduled for the 27th and 28th. So those are additional exceptions on top of the standard holidays in the standard calendar. And then you'll notice that if we go to the Mary is actually in India. So she has a base calendar of India. India has the same working times and weekends that we do, but they don't have the same holidays. So normally you'd probably see additional Indian holidays here. But for the sake of this example, I'm just making the point that there are no Thanksgiving holidays. So that's how you can view your calendar configurations and find out why you might be having some exception days causing your tasks to skip over dates that you are noticing in your actual planning. Back to the presentation. Calendars can get applied to projects, resources, and individual tasks. For projects that's done in the project information dialog box, usually this would be assumed to be the standard calendar, but you can adjust it to a different calendar if you want all of your tasks to follow, all of your non-assigned tasks to follow a different calendar. You can set that up here. I will show you where that is momentarily. And then the resources have their calendars. You can see this on the resource sheet, but you cannot change the calendar that they're using if you're in Project Online. Again, those resources are enterprise resources and they're set up by your admin. But as we mentioned before, they can have additional personal exception days. You would not add those either. Those would get added either by the person through their timesheet or by a resource manager or an admin. And then you can have individual tasks with their own calendars. This is the part that a lot of people may not be aware of, or if they are aware of it, they may not understand why it doesn't seem to work sometimes. And I'm here to show you how to use it properly. So you would go to the task information dialog box. You can either get to that in the task ribbon, or you can double click your task and you will get to this this dialog box, and you'd go to the advanced tab. And on the advanced tab, you see calendar. And then you have the choice of what calendar you want this task to follow, and then you have this checkbox I mentioned, the scheduling ignores resource calendars checkbox. That's the very important one that controls that layering and the overriding, and most people miss it and don't understand what it does. So I'm here to show you that today. So quickly, I will show you where to find those various settings. On the project ribbon, you can go to project information, and here's where you would set your project calendar. And your project calendar again handles all tasks that don't have resources on them, or don't have task calendars on them. Usually you'd be on standard. The resources, you can view their calendars by going to the resource sheet and adding the base calendar column. And the task level calendars, we're going to do this multiple times here very shortly, but you can click, highlight a task, go to the task ribbon, click on the task information, or double click the task, either way. And you will get the task information dialog box, and usually you'd be on the general tab. You'd switch to the advanced tab and you'd see the calendar option right here with the scheduling ignores resource calendars. We're going to use this a lot momentarily. Back to the presentation briefly. So calendar layering and override order. Here's this graphic again I showed you. This tries to show you how the calendars stack on top of each other and override each other based on these based on the settings and whether you apply a resource calendar to it or not. So just in text, conceptually, when you first create a brand new task with no resources on it and no specific task calendar, it will follow the project calendar, the base green level here. So it'll skip over the weekends if that's the way your calendar is configured, and it will also skip over any holidays that happen to be configured in that calendar. When you add a resource, you go right to this orange level. It will override the project calendar. That's why sometimes when you assign certain resources, you will notice that things change. When you add a task calendar, it will always override the project calendar, but will not override the resource calendar if that checkbox I mentioned is turned off, but will override the resource calendar if that checkbox I mentioned is turned on. So this right here is the key to being able to fully control what individual tasks are doing calendar-wise. So I'll show you a demo on this. Let me go ahead and open up this same schedule. And I'm going to go ahead and tile this with this graphic so that you can reference it as we do this demo. So here we have a nice waterfall schedule that's progressing along, all interdependent with each other. You'll notice here that if you recall, this project is set up on the standard calendar. And as we already looked at, in change working time, the standard calendar has Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving as exception days. So those are reflected right directly in the Gantt chart here. The 23rd and 24th are holidays and non-working time. 25th and 26th are the weekend days, Saturday and Sunday, and then you head back into Monday through Friday again. So you'll notice that this task, which would normally occur on the Thursday, is skipping over the holidays and the weekends because it's following the base calendar for the project, which is the standard calendar. So we can control that. We can make that task, we can go to this blue level here basically, and we can click into this task, either double click it or go to the task ribbon and click information, go to the advanced tab, and you can set this task to have its own calendar separate from the project calendar. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the no holidays calendar, which, as I mentioned, as it states, and as we looked at before, it has no holidays in it. So it's going to ignore the Thanksgiving holiday that's in the normal base calendar. I'm going to leave this checkbox unchecked for now, and I'm going to click OK. You'll notice this little icon pops up over here next to the task, and it says that the calendar, this task has a special calendar for no holidays. So it lets you know when you have a task level calendar that might be interfering with things. But basically what I just did, just to undo and redo a couple times, watch this task right here. You're going to see that beforehand, it was skipping over to Monday, and after I applied the task calendar, it jumped to the Thursday. Now we're here on this dark blue level here. Now, watch what happens when I assign Joe. As you recall, Joe is on the standard calendar, so he will have the same holidays as the standard calendar. Notice how that task jumped back to Monday. That's because you're on the orange level now. The resource calendar has overridden both the project calendar and the task calendar with that checkbox turned off. Well, let's say we've talked to Joe and we actually want him to be working on that task, and he's okay with coming in on that Thursday, and he's agreed to do so. So we need to reflect that in our schedule. So it's very simple. You double click the task or go into task information in the ribbon, and then just check this checkbox. And since you have the calendar set to no holidays and you've told it to ignore the resource calendars, you're going to end up on this light blue level over here on the stack. And you're going to click OK, and notice how it jumped from Monday back to Thursday again. So we are now at this light blue level. We've overridden everything. So it doesn't matter what else is on this task. The task calendar with the checkbox is overriding everything. Okay, so that's one example of how to kind of work your way through those levels. I'm going to show you a couple more examples that might be helpful to you. I'm going to go ahead and hit undo a few times just to get us back to the starting point. So we're back where we started. So this example that I'm about to show you is to show you how different resources and their different resource calendars can affect your schedule in unexpected ways, and how you can diagnose that. First of all, let's review the resources that we have and their calendars in our schedule here. So I'm going to go up to change working time. I'm going to click on Joe, and we'll recall that Joe has the standard calendar and no additional PTO or exception days for himself. Zach has the standard calendar and has an additional couple of days after Thanksgiving. And then Mary is in India. We don't want to save changes. I'm not sure what I did. Let's change this. Mary, let's just start that over. I'm not sure what I did. Mary here is in India, and she doesn't have any additional holidays. In fact, she has no holidays in November either. So we know that she could work on Thanksgiving Day and the day after Thanksgiving. Okay, so let's remember those configurations for those folks. So if I have my base calendar set to standard, and I'm going to go apply Joe, and Joe is also on the standard calendar with no additional exceptions, nothing really changes. You are on the orange level here. Technically, Joe's calendar is overriding the project calendar, but there's nothing different from it, so it matches. If I were to change that to Mary, remember, is in India. She doesn't have the Thanksgiving holiday. So she's actually going to get that task is going to pull in because of her calendar rather. So again, we're at the orange level. Resource calendar is overriding the project calendar. And then now if we skip to Zach, so we reassign this to Zach, this is where it gets interesting. Zach had those 2 extra days on Monday and Tuesday as PTO time. Now, nothing shows up grayed out. And if you weren't aware of his PTO, you might be questioning, why is this happening? I don't understand why when I apply Joe, it works on Monday, but when I apply Zach, he's working on Wednesday. Why is this task getting skipped because of Zach? And again, first thing you should do is go to your project ribbon, go to change working time, change to Zach's calendar, and then look at his PTO schedule in the month that you're concerned with, and you will likely find that there are exceptions there. Okay, so now we have Zach applied, but we've actually talked to him. And again, I'm going to take you up to this top level again. So right now we're at the orange level. I've talked to Zach and he's agreed to come in on Thanksgiving Day. He's a nice guy. He's going to get this done for us. It's very important. So I'm going to double click this and go to the advanced task information dialog advanced tab. I'm going to, right now there's no calendar on the task. I'm going to go ahead and apply the no holidays calendar. And I'm for now, just to drive this point home, I'm going to leave this checkbox unchecked. And I'm going to click OK, and nothing will happen because we're only sitting here at the dark blue level with that checkbox turned off. So I have to take the extra step of checking that checkbox to get to that top layer. And now Zach's task is following the task calendar and ignoring Zach's resource calendar and everything below it. And he is working on Thanksgiving with that task. All right, well, let's say Zach is also going to do these subsequent 2 tasks. And he, again, has agreed to come in on the Saturday and, the Friday and the Saturday, but he wants to keep his other holidays. Actually, I'll go ahead and apply him to all of the tasks, the remaining tasks. So let's say these 2 special tasks really have to get done. So we're going to go ahead. This is how you can apply task calendars to multiple tasks at the same time. You would highlight both or multiple, go to the task ribbon, go to the task information button, get this dialog box, go to the advanced tab, and then you'll notice everything's blank here because you're handling multiple tasks at the same time. Click on calendar. I'm going to go ahead and pick working weekends. We know working weekends also does not have any holidays in it, so it will serve both purposes of getting it to work on the Saturday as well as on the holidays. And I'm going to make sure that this actually gets explicitly checked. When it's a black box, it means that some are checked and some aren't, or it doesn't know. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and that will force all the calendars except for the task calendar to get ignored because that checkbox is turned on, and now Zach is working Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But then we're giving him his PTO and Sunday and his PTO, and then he doesn't work on the lower priority tasks until Wednesday when he comes back. So that is how to use this layering in order to really accomplish pretty much anything you need to on particular tasks. And you'll notice that the other tasks are still following the project calendar or whatever resource calendar if they have a resource calendar. So hopefully that helps. If you do have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat or the Q&A area. And now I will hand it back to Annie. Let me get to the presentation and show the next slide. Annie.
Thanks, Brice. Our final speaker is Jeff Harrison, a senior technical consultant with Projility. Jeff has over 20 years of experience implementing Microsoft enterprise systems and databases. He specializes in taking on the toughest technical challenges with Microsoft Project PPM, including custom reporting and systems integration. Jeff also has a background in database and financial systems. A fun fact about Jeff, he restores commercial restaurant equipment. Jeff, you're on.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing today? So as soon as I get my screen shared here, which come on, there it goes. So what we're going to do, it's going to be a pretty quick presentation. We'll talk about Power BI and Power Query, and basically, Power BI queries, when you use the kind of out of the box get data functionality, can get really messy. Kind of demonstrate that. I'm then going to demonstrate how we can use parameterization of URLs and creating a what I call a master OData feed, and simplifying how you pull data from Power BI. So that being said, I'm going to bring up a blank Power BI here. And we're going to, and first, so this is how a lot of people go in when they're new to the product. We'll go to OData feed. And I'm going to get my URL here and paste it in there. And we're going to grab the projects table. Load. And we wait a minute. Okay, now we go in here to Power Query and transform data. And we take a look at this query using the advanced editor. You'll see here, you've got this URL here. So you can just imagine that, let's say you have your projects, your tasks, your assignments, whatever tables you may want to bring in from OData, and you want to change this to point at either a different PWA instance, for that matter, a whole different tenant in PWA instance. You'd have to go in and change every one of these. Not fun. So, better way to do this is we're going to go in here and we're going to create a parameter. I'll call this parameter PWA OData URL, and I've got all this easy to paste in so I don't have to type. And we're going to give it a value. And it's going to be this. And this is what it's going to look like right here. The full full URL to the OData. I'll click OK. And there he is. And you notice he is already marked as enable load is not enabled. It's hidden. Now we have that. We want to create a master feed. So we're going to go here and do a new query. Blank query. I'll rename it. PWA data feed. We're going to go to, and we're going to hide this too. And we're going to say disable load advanced editor. Here, we're going to do this. PWA OData feed is simply odata.feed pointing at that PWA OData URL. Very simple. And that's going to load us this master table here with all our various OData tables that we can load. Now that we have that, it's actually very simple. We can go back into this original project and edit it. And we change our source, PWA OData feed. And then our source, we simply have that, put a comma there. That should now. There you go. So now, if we'll go back in the advanced editor, you can see we're using this master feed here, and all we're doing here is naming the table we want, and it appears. Now let's say we want to add tasks. Go back to advanced editor, and just copy that. We can go in and create a new blank query. We're going to rename it, call it tasks, advanced editor, and paste that in. and change that from project to tasks. And boom, we now have our task table. And then up here, should we ever want to change this to, let's say you have another tenant or whatever, you change it here and instantly it's changed everywhere. And all your tables will then automatically point to the new tenant and or just Project Online instance, making things is so much simpler. So that is it for my presentation today. And thank you very much for being here. I'm going to pass it back to Annie now.
Thanks, Jeff. Switching gears here. Amanda, Brice, and Jeff, thanks so much for your valuable content and direction on the different components of Microsoft Project and PPM. Hopefully all attendees learned a thing or two they didn't before. We'll now open the floor to questions and answers. Remember to enter your questions at the questions and answer manager at the top of your team screen. Let's see if there's any questions in the queue. I do see one here. What is one thing you see most project managers don't do well with Microsoft Project? Any of our speakers may answer this.
Repeat it again, Annie.
What is one thing you see most project managers don't do well with Microsoft Project?
I would say one of is the planning process for the projects, spending the time to actually understand the tool and creating a work breakdown structure that makes sense to the person owning the project, and making sure that the tasks that are scheduled for that are very easily understood by anybody else that's viewing that information. I see project managers tend to make their project schedules overly complex instead of focusing on just the key elements that are most important to them.
I think another would be leveling. A lot of people don't understand the leveling engine in MS Project, and therefore because it's not well understood, they either don't use it correctly or have the settings correctly, or they just ignore it and don't use it. Probably a good topic for another future webinar. Annie, I also did notice a question in the Q&A bin. I did put a text answer in there, but I can also address it verbally if desired.
Thanks, Brice. We actually have another question. Is Power BI the best reporting tool with Project and Project Online?
This is Jeff. I'll pick that up. At this time, yes, I believe it is probably the best option out there for reporting against Project Online, due to the fact that Project Online you do not have access to the backend database as you did in Project Server. That being said, one thing I do recommend if you're doing a lot of transformations with time phase data within Power BI that you look into using data flows, and you basically load your data into data flows, and then from there you can point data sets at them. And the only other thing I'll say about that is if you have a lot of time phase data, you have to look at splitting out those time phase queries into separate data flows, and that does require Power BI Premium. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We have one final question. Is reporting from Project Server different from Project Online?
Jeff again. Yes, it is. Project Server has a back-end reporting database in a SQL database that you can report against, whereas Project Online does not have that option. Project Online only has OData. Now, to further muddy the waters, Project Server had OData until the current subscription edition came out. This is Project Server, and they took away OData, so now you only have the reporting database option. Again, I hope that answers your questions. Thank you.
Now on to the fun. Before we wrap up, we are raffling off a few project-specific items. In order to enter, you must complete our short survey, which will be sent in a link in our email follow-up. Enter for the chance to win a copy of our latest book release, Ultimate Study Guide for Project 2019, a copy of our Managing Enterprise Projects Using Project Online and Project Server 2019, and a crowd favorite, the Hammerhead Wine Key. I'll be sending all attendees a link to our survey. By filling it out, you'll be registering for the drawing. Winners will be chosen at random tomorrow, so please submit your surveys in the next 24 hours. If you would like to do more hands-on learning on the Microsoft Project and PPM platform, we have a full online e-learning application with self-service courses designed from everything from basic use of Project through project and resource management with PPM. E-learning can be purchased on an annual basis for different users of different size groups, starting at 25 users. Finally, if you or anyone in your organization is looking for help or guidance with Project or PPM platform, do reach out. Projility provides professional planning, development, and support services around this platform designed to help you drive improved use and adoption. Additionally, you can hit up our website, which has a series of blogs as well as information on some of our add-on solutions, including an automated connector between Microsoft Teams, Project, and Power BI reporting solutions. Reach out via email at info@projility.com. Thanks to everyone that joined our session today. Please do reach out if we can assist with any of your project, program, portfolio management related efforts to explore how Microsoft's latest project platform can have an impact on your business. Thanks again. Have a great day.